At 4:12 on 5 October 2025, deep inside Ukrainian territory, 14 UAVs took off from concealed launch points. Engines roared, then fell silent in the night, signaling the start of a daring mission. Each drone carried a 40 kg high-explosive warhead. The crew understood the plan was risky, but no one expected its effects to spread so far. In just a few hours, the Russian Navy would learn a harsh lesson. Nowhere would truly be safe. No logistic line, safety corridor, or rear haven could be relied on any longer. 5 hours before dawn in Moscow or the Caspian port of Olia, Ukraine military intelligence had fixed the target coordinates. The chosen target was a Russian command ship thought untouchable. Anchored roughly 800 kilometers from Ukraine's nearest position, it floated in what Moscow considered an impenetrable safe zone. That assumption would be shattered. The vessel at Olia 4, a Russian-flagged freighter of roughly 4,900 tons gross, was not a routine cargo ship. Intelligence assessed it was carrying nearly 5,000 tons of Iranian-supplied military hardware. The manifest read like a war plan. Sections for Shahed 136 and Shahed 238, avionics and precision gyros, satellite guidance units, power systems, and pallets containing 122 Melmir rockets. In battlefield terms, the ship carried the means to sustain weeks of strikes on cities and front lines. Ukrainian analysts followed it with layered reconnaissance. First, commercial synthetic aperture radar satellites. SAR sees at night and through clouds and detected the ship when its AIS was turned off. Analysts compared the radar signature to known hull profiles and used anchor geometry and drift patterns to confirm identity. From repeated observations, they estimated the vessel would remain at anchor for about 4-6 hours, enough for a well-prepared operation. Second, signals intelligence. The Olia 4 berth was radio silent, but the pattern of silence interspersed with intermittent radar pings helped pin its location. The captain thought he was hiding, but in reality, every eye was on him. Ukrainian planners saw an opportunity. He was anchored inside the Volga-Don shipping channel rather than the main Caspian port. On paper, that reduced exposure. The Caspian felt safe at 800 kilometers from Ukraine and protected by Russian territory. Who would reach him there? That confidence evaporates on contact. Kyiv set a precise objective. A concentrated explosive strike could disperse components and enable salvage to be prevented. Kyiv aimed to perform a controlled sinking, a blow straight to the hull, intended to send most of the cargo to the seabed, where recovery would become nearly impossible. It required precision and timing. The attack used indigenous long-range drones built on the UJ-26 extended-range platform, purpose-built kamikaze UAVs. Composite airframes cut radar cross-section. Cruise speeds of 150-180 kilometers per hour. Low-altitude sea-skimming flight at to 260 meters above the waterlet, then blend into radar clutter. Guidance fused GNSS with inertial backups and electro-optical confirmation. Even under jamming, the drones could locate their target. The warheads matched the mission, 40 kilograms charges. Some were optimized for fragmentation, others configured for semi-armor penetration of pontoon deck plates and fuel tanks. Range extended to roughly 1,200 kilometers with loiter fuel. 14 UAVs formed the package, 12 attackers and 2 relays. At 4:12, final synchronization went green, and the plan's coordinated split-axis attack began. The squad was divided into 4 axes. Group 1 aimed at the starboard stern steering, propulsion, thrusters, and ventilation. Group 2 struck the bow, the bridge, and forward compartments. Group 3 hit midship to break beams and open water lines. The last pair denied barriers to block tugs and patrol craft. At the 5-hour mark, most drones were coasting at 2,060 meters altitude, while 2 relay UAVs flew at 30,500 meters to relay telemetry. Small radar cross-section signatures looked innocuous to coastal radar and were logged at low priority. At 9:15 local time, the first drone struck the aft deck, blowing open a thin plate around the engine room ventilation trunk. Fire ran along cable trays and control circuits were crippled. Fuel pumps flamed. Emergency generators and the automatic firefighting systems weakened. Seconds later, a second drone hit the starboard waterline, puncturing the hull and causing catastrophic flooding into lower holds. third and fourth compartments flooded in turn. One struck a cargo hatch. Another hit the port water line. Structural connections fractured. Thick black smoke and burning debris filled the decks. The ship began to list. On the bridge, alarms sounded, and the captain declared a maritime emergency. Russian port security launched 2 tugs and a coastal patrol craft. Too late. At 9:18, a 5th drone impacted near the bow control spaces. Distribution panels shorted on the deck, and the bridge went dark. Main power failed. Systems switched to batteries, suffering outages and cascading fires. Emergency systems malfunctioned. The drones carried pre-programmed inertial pathways to survive electronic warfare. The warhead effects were deliberately altered. Fragmentation to shred exposed systems and delayed fusing to strike deep compartments where pumps could not reach. Between 9:20 and 9:23, the 6th and 7th struck simultaneously, ripping a large tear in the starboard hull below the waterline. At 9:25, with raging fires and multiple flooded compartments, the captain ordered the ship abandoned. Lifeboats plunged into the Caspian as thick smoke billowed from the stern. Russian air defenses shot down 2 drones in the final phase. It did not change the outcome. At 9:28, the 8th drone struck the lower midship belt, deepening the list to 7 degrees. Attacks 9 and 10 targeted the stern shaft tunnel. Propulsion lines ruptured. Fuel oil spilled under the deck and fed the fires. The 11th and 12th struck along the tug approach lanes to block salvage. Relay UAVs retained high-definition video and remote sensing streams. At 9:28, the 8th drone struck the lower midship belt, deepening the list to 7 degrees. Attacks 9 and 10 targeted the stern shaft tunnel. Propulsion lines ruptured. Fuel oil spilled under the deck and fed the fires. The 11th and 12th struck along the tug approach lanes to block salvage. Relay UAVs retained high-definition video and remote sensing streams. A textbook cascade of failures. Power loss paralyzed automation. Pump failures erased any chance of counterflooding. The center of gravity shifted and the ship listed. Structural members across the hull warped and buckled. Things began to collapse. At 9:37, Olia 4 suffered catastrophic damage. Within hours, the vessel capsized and sank completely. By 13:19, satellite imagery showed the hull under the Caspian, while smoke still rose from the wreck site. Russia's Ministry of Defense initially downplayed the incident. That claim crumbled when images leaked on social platforms. Open-source analysts geolocated imagery using coastal works, cranes, and streetlights. Commercial satellites confirmed a column of smoke visible from 10 kilometers away. On 5 October 2025, Ukraine's General Staff confirmed the strike and the cargo UAV components from Iran and munitions. Follow-up imagery on 10 October showed Russian salvage vessels attempting recovery. The scale of the loss remained large. Rescue teams worked under flashing lights, pulling what they could in dangerous conditions. Divers and cranes recovered damaged containers, but many things were lost forever. Analysts measured not only tonnage lost, but weeks of operational pause, idle factories, production lines missing parts, and delayed launch schedules. Manpower costs mattered too. Crew and dock workers faced sudden danger, and whole firms reeled from missed contracts and rising costs. One Shahed airframe weighs roughly 200 kilograms. With to 5,000 tons aboard, the cargo represented parts for hundreds of drones. Each Shahed carries a 240 kg warhead. The sunken cargo represented over 12,000 kilograms of explosives that would never reach their targets. Crucially, without avionics, GNSS packages and power units, Russia could not assemble drones at industrial scale. The strike did more than sink cargo, it sank a weeks-long operational plan. Strategically, assumptions about sanctuary shattered. The Caspian, once a rear area, became contested. Markets reacted. War risk premiums on Caspian sea routes spiked. AIS outages rose as captains tried to hide. Some ships used fake call signs. Convoys slowed turnover at ports. Road transport increased along with intelligence footprints, costs, and vulnerable choke points. Diplomatic ripples followed. Caspian states convened emergency maritime safety meetings. For the first time in the war, officials considered the Caspian a contested operational area rather than a rear haven. From Kyiv's perspective, the strike was a disciplined masterpiece. It expanded the war beyond the Black Sea theater and forced Moscow to reevaluate its logistics and defense. By sinking a single ship, Ukraine removed thousands of previously Iranian-supplied drone parts and disrupted the tempo of Russian air operations. For Russia, the shock was immediate. Shahed production stalled. Nightly terror strikes on cities slowed. Supply chains once considered safe now felt exposed and fragile. The loss of Olia 4 was not merely a sunken ship. It was a blow to confidence, a crack in logistics, and proof that no rear area was beyond reach. Modern methods of warfare, determination, and precision, not just distance, did this. The lasting effect was uncertainty. If Kyiv could do this once, it could do it again. Every vessel bound for Russian ports now sailed under a cloud of fear. Crews demanded hazard pay, insurers pulled back, schedules slipped, turnaround times stretched. Continuous pressure and the worry that any small radar blip might be a UJ-26 began to erode the system. Ultimately, the wreck corroding on the Caspian seabed was not the only victory. The collapse of the illusion of safety was the enduring win. If you found this account compelling and want to verify more about modern operations, consider subscribing. Your support helps us provide clear, factual reporting. Stay safe